I just want when people tune in to watch to feel like we're sitting in a coffee shop and you and I are chatting and they get to eavesdrop on our conversation. Hey everyone! It is the last Thursday of the month, so you know what that means. It means it is time for PCPA's Talkback series. I'm Erik Stein. I've got my interviewing shirt on, and I've got my raspberry lime spindrift, so I'm ready. Let me tell you just a little bit about Paul Barnes. Paul Barnes is so important to me in my life that I'm nervous because I don't know if I'm going to be able to express what an incredible human being he is and how important he's been in my life. And one of the ways I'm going to try to do that is by letting you see how important he's been in so many people's lives. I like to call Paul the mentor of mentors. What's the first thing you do when you receive a script for a play that you've just been hired to direct?
I think, the director's job so much has to do with creating, a play space for the actors to be able to actually play. And, I think, I have few theories about directing and only a few. And one of them is that that I can direct lots of things. I can direct, how to make an entrance or where to stand on the stage or when to pick up the prop or, all of that. But the thing that I think is crucial to really good acting is relaxation. And I don't know how to direct that except by giving an actor the opportunity to repeat, which I think leads to ownership, which then leads to relaxation. And once you have relaxation, then anything can happen because you're really there playing, which is not to say that you just, are sort of free form. You have to define the play space and the jungle gym and, the tools that you're working with. But you've got to give actors a chance to inhabit the play space and help them, and then be able to say, I think that's a little bit out of bounds, I think that's a little bit more than we need, I think if you can rein that in here or punch that up there. And then so much of it is getting back to the ABCD. Am I moving people around the stage? Are they moving themselves around the stage, in a way that makes the story clear to the audience, so the audience always knows where the story is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of watching and massaging.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, you said to me that if it happens in the room that you created, then it is yours. You created the space where that could happen.
Well, I want to add a little something to that in that, when I came back to PCPA to direct Noises Off for the 50th anniversary season, I had done a production of Noises Off. I had seen the first production of Noises Off at PCPA that Roger directed, which was so wonderful and had such a terrific cast. Then I got to direct it also with an excellent cast, including one of your classmates, Deb Staples, who was then a company member at Milwaukee Repertory Theater. And my great lesson from working on Noises Off was arc the prop, as I call it. If you've got to follow the magnifying glass, you've got to make sure the audience knows that it's going wherever it's supposed to go. So I did a lot of, you can't, keep it hidden. You've got to arc the prop so that they know where that bottle is. They know where that, bouquet of flowers is. And a lot of directing can come down to very technical things like that as well. And I think in any production you're doing, it's a marriage of, technical precision and that freedom, that relaxation, that openness.
Hey, let me ask you. We have talked a lot about your mentorship. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your early mentors?
Oh wow. Yeah, I'll try to be brief. First of all, my parents really, I think, mentored me towards the arts when they realized their kid was not going to be the typical, pick up the bat and the ball and go out and play Little League. Then I discovered theater, and my high school drama teacher, David G. Buck, was a great mentor. He really encouraged me and all of the students who were doing theater at Cubberley High School in Palo Alto, which is where I graduated from high school, to dig into really good work, to look at good scripts, and also if we had an idea of wanting to try something on our own, to go ahead and do it. And then I had, very good faculty members. I ended up after, it was the 60s. I took 7.5 years to get my degree, doing a lot of different things, traveling, working, et cetera. Studied in New York for a while at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And I still thought I might become an actor. Ended up at Cal State Fullerton to complete my undergraduate degree, and I had several very good directing instructors there. Edwin Dorr was one, Robert Rentz was another, and Al Keller, who was chair of the department, was a third. Each had their own particular style and way of working, so it was great because I got exposed to a lot of different approaches to directing. But they always encouraged me to find my own way and to find my own voice. But I think probably my biggest mentor and exemplar has been Jim Edmondson, my partner, who is here at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. That's where his career, up until a few years ago, was based as a director and an actor. And just getting to watch him, watch his work, talk to him, certainly, osmose a lot of who he is and what he does as a director, and also the fact that he is always, I've just been so fortunate to have come into contact with a lot of people who have always said yes. I've had very few people in my life who have said no, but they've always said yes, run with the ball, run as fast as you can, we'll be alongside you. I mean, Mike Peterson, when he was director of the tech training program at PCPA, always said, we're going to be running right alongside you. You see how fast you can go. And Jack Schaus gave me so many great opportunities as a director when I was at PCPA. To try all kinds of things, whether it was musicals like Peter Pan, or Shakespeare, even up to King Lear, all of those things. So there have been a ton of mentors in my life and career. I've been very, very fortunate.
Just to let folks know, Paul, you were a high school drama teacher for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How many years did you teach high school theater?
5 or 6.
5 or 6 years, and you were in kind of the Stockton area?
I was in Stockton. I was in the Lincoln Unified School District, which is a school district in Stockton, but it's separate from Stockton Unified School District. It's its own, separate school district, and it had one high school that had developed an incredibly good, very strong theater program. It was a school that was, pretty, it was a public school, but it was pretty college prep. It had very strong arts programs, music and theater in particular. And I kind of inherited a very, very active, well-built theater program there. But in 1978 or 79, I was beginning to get restless, as you do, and feeling the need for change. And by that time, I had a very important personal relationship going. And, it was clear that Jim was going to be in Ashland. That was home base for him. And I was getting a little antsy, but also Proposition 13 passed, the Jarvis-Gann tax initiative, which changed, public school funding in the state of California, forever. And as far as I'm concerned, not for the better. And I thought, this is just going to get harder. I love what I'm doing. I love the students. I love the freedom I have in a secondary high school, because I had two very cool principals who, really believed you needed to challenge students with excellent material. And, they trusted me to do that. And they trusted my taste, and they trusted my integrity. And, but in spite of all of those things, it was time for a change. And I just thought, this is just going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. And it was hard enough under the best of circumstances. So I, took a leap off the high board, which is something I really believe in doing. I think you have to push yourself off the high board and go into free fall and trust that you're going to be okay.
So did you have, because I know you ended up working at OSF, but did you have that job already, or you've left the high school with, well, we're going to go see what happens?
Yeah, my basic plan was to go back to school and finish my master's degree, which I had started at Cal State Fullerton. I was one semester into it. And they kept saying, come back whenever you want to. We'll make it as smooth and easy for you as possible. We'd love to have you. So I thought, I'll go to Ashland for the summer, then I'll go back to school, finish that degree, so I've got it. But I got a job right away in Ashland as a clerk in the box office and spent the summer season doing that, which was terrific because I had tickets, people wanted them, I made a lot of people happy, and I didn't have to grade papers. So, or develop curriculum, or talk to parents about why their kid wasn't cast. so, so it was great. And then, just as I was getting ready to go back to Fullerton, they offered me a position in the box office as one of several assistant managers. And I just leapt at the chance to stay in Ashland for all kinds of reasons. But I really think I was burnt out on academic settings, and I just wasn't ready to go back into a school setting of any kind. So I stayed on, had a great year, learned a lot. And one of the things that I learned was that I didn't want to be a box office manager, but I had acquired a lot of, really interesting information and skill, got ready to go back to school to finish that master's degree. And then they opened up a position, they created a position of education director at the Shakespeare Festival. They offered it to me, and I stayed for the next 8 years and developed all kinds of education programs, refined a lot that were there. Had a really great time. Created the summer seminar for high school juniors, which is one of the things of which I'm incredibly proud and feel very gratified by. And then one day I walked into my office at the Shakespeare Festival. Again, it was about the time when I was getting a little antsy, felt like I was maybe, repeating myself a little too much. Wasn't sure how I was going to continue growing in the job. And the phone was ringing, and I picked it up, and it was Jack Schaus at PCPA. And he said, we're looking for a conservatory director, and is this something that you might be interested in? I said, tell me more, especially if it would involve directing opportunities. And he said, oh yes, you would get to direct, at least once during the school year and once during the summer. And I said, well, that makes it very interesting. And that's how I made the shift to PCPA.
How did PCPA first come into your life? I know that when you were a high school teacher, you were sending students because my first year acting teacher, Roger Delorier, was your high school drama student. And then, and for those of you who may not know, Roger is now the conservatory director and associate artistic director of PCPA. So did you discover PCPA when you were a high school teacher?
I knew about PCPA before I started teaching in Stockton, but found out about it right around the same time. I believe Donovan Marley had come to Cal State Fullerton to audition people for their summer season while I was still a student there. So I kind of heard about it, but didn't really know about it. And then I came to Stockton for a summer or two before I started teaching at Lincoln High School, because they had an extensive summer theater program. And I knew the guy who was running it and who had developed the theater program at Lincoln. And he brought me in to be their kind of education coordinator, develop classes and activities for a lot of students who were, really interested in being part of the summer theater. And some recent graduates of Lincoln High School had gone down to PCPA. And so I think somewhere in my last year at Cal State Fullerton, I actually went to PCPA, saw some rehearsals, saw a couple of productions, was really knocked out by the quality of the work. And that became the place to send students who were really serious about theater, acting or technical theater, when I actually started teaching, and had students who were looking for the place to go.
Having a lot of your first years directing, on a regular basis, be at a training program, I've noticed that you continue to work with training programs around the country. Mm-hmm. What is it that draws you to working with students in training?
Well, yeah, I get, in the course of a year of directing assignments, I get one, sometimes two assignments or offers to come to an MFA program or a BFA program to direct. And I love being in touch with the future of the American theater. It's thrilling, it's exciting, um, to sort of touch the magic when it's really just forming. I find often I find BFA students the most fun to work with because they're young and sparky and they're not playing the training, which I think sometimes when a student makes the decision to seek advanced training in a master's program somewhere, and they have rigorous auditions, and they manage to get into a program and it gets very intense and very serious. I think they're so focused on doing the right thing in the training or figuring out what the training is that sometimes they can lose that spark that a BFA student will have. And I don't mean that critically, I just mean that observationally, that I think it's a natural part of the progression of becoming an artist. But I've had wonderful experiences in MFA programs, and I'm actually about to go to one in August at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, knock wood. This has been part of an artist in residency program that's been in the works for a couple of years now, and then deferred and postponed because of COVID. But I'm supposed to do Love's Labor's Lost. They're in the fall now in what they call the Mini Greek Theater, which is an outdoor space right alongside the Performing Arts Complex, and social distance protocols and all of that, but hopefully by August 15th, when we go into rehearsals, things are going to be a little more relaxed about all of that. So, yeah, but I really enjoy being in the training setting.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you're out on the road and you're directing in theater companies all over the country, I've noticed that there are sometimes actors who you obviously love to work with. Actors like Tara Flanagan and Jim Poulos, who you are like, if I'm going to this place, I would really love to have Jim with me in this, or I'm heading over here, I'd really love to have Tara, or in some cases both of them with me on this production. I have two questions about that. What is it about an actor that makes you go, this is going to now be part of my team, this is part of the folks that I want to carry with me to other projects? And part two, what is it that an unknown person does for you in an audition that is the spark that makes you go, I don't know this person, I've not worked with this person, but I want to work with this person. I want to take a risk on this person. Can you talk about both of those,
Sure.
those avenues?
Sure. Well, I think, putting on a play, directing a production is a very high risk business. I mean, there's every chance of success and there's every chance of failure. And so you want to stack the deck as much as you can in favor of success. And so working with actors that you know and have developed a relationship with over a certain amount of time, that you have developed a kind of shorthand with and a lot of trust, is really important. And yet at the same time, getting to work with new talent is always really exciting. So I think what it comes down to with somebody new who I haven't worked with before, it's a spark of truth and imagination that you key into or sense somehow in the audition situation when you're meeting that actor for the first time. Professionally, first of all, you get the audition, but it's really the callback. If you get the callback, that I always find that's my time to work with an actor in the space in the limited amount of time you've got, and to see if the spark that you detected the first meeting actually exists and continues, and can you communicate with this person and work with them. And that's, I think, one of the most exciting parts about auditioning and casting. But a lot of it comes down to work ethic. When I'm auditioning and casting Shakespeare, it starts always with language. Can this person handle elevated text? Can they speak heightened language? I think if you're doing Shakespeare, I don't care how, when, or where you are setting it, if you're not committed to language, then you shouldn't be doing it. So it's tuning your ear to language. Are they dropping endings? Is it a down glide, or can they lift the end of the line? Those kinds of technical skills that take a while to acquire, but ultimately set free the actor. I mean, it's like bar work for a dancer or the scales for a pianist. That scansion and all of that stuff only is there to set you free once you've kind of mastered the technique. But it's first, last, and always with Shakespeare about language, whether it's somebody I know and have trained like Jim, like Tara, or somebody I've never worked with. And man, I've worked with some fabulous verse speakers, in my career, and there's nothing more thrilling or exciting about it.
Paul, I wanted to make sure that we spent some time talking about your leadership of and creation of the Great River Shakespeare Festival.
Mm-hmm.
You were out. Your freelance directing career had been going and was going really well. You were working consistently with theater companies all over the country, and yet you were drawn to starting basically kind of from the ground up with a theater company in a beautiful little town called Winona, Minnesota, starting a Shakespeare mm-hmm. festival there. Can you talk a little bit about what drew you to wanting to be, I guess, in charge, for lack of a better word, to being the leadership to running a theater company?
Yeah, well, it takes a certain amount of just being crazy, I think. But I was hired at the Guthrie Theater to direct they had established a new BFA actor training program, and a friend of mine was running it. Ken Washington was overseeing it as part of the Guthrie staff, and then my friend and acquaintance, Scott Freeman, who is one of the best acting teachers in New York City now, and was always a great acting teacher. He was at ACT for a while as a company member and as a teacher, and then he was an actor. Anyway, he was heading the program, and he knew that because of the strong affiliation with the Guthrie Theater, this BFA program, which was essentially accredited through the University of Minnesota, was going to be in competition with Juilliard and NYU and all of the, Carnegie and Cincinnati, all of the really top BFA programs, simply because it was affiliated with Guthrie. Scott hired me to come in and take half of the class and do a project version of Romeo and Juliet. And he hired another guy named Alec Wild to come in and work with the other 7 students in that class. And Alec did The Winter's Tale. And we did these kind of bare bone projects that went up in the Guthrie studio over the course of a weekend. I think we did, each project got about 4 performances each in rep. And it was really fun. Alec and I were staying in the same apartment building, and we would always, get back to the apartments, and we'd have a scotch in one of our apartments, and talk about how it was all going. And we really got to know each other. And I felt like he and I both felt like we spoke each other's language about Shakespeare and about theater and about acting. Well, a third person who happened to live in Minneapolis, a set designer and director named Mark Hauk, he was from Minneapolis. And I got in touch with him when I got to Minneapolis and said, hey, I'm in town for about 8 weeks. Let's be sure to get together. And he said, well, I'm taking some classes at the university. I'd love to assist. So he came in and helped with the projects. And it was Mark's idea that Minnesota didn't have a big summer Shakespeare festival. And would I be interested in, starting one? And, I thought to myself, right, start a Shakespeare festival in Minnesota somewhere. This is going to be the kind of thing that we're going to get together in a bar every few years and say, hey, remember when we were going to start that Shakespeare festival? I said, well, I'm doing the freelance thing. It's going really well. My life is kind of an open book. So I'm certainly interested in continuing the conversation. And while we're at it, why don't we involve Alec? Because I think Alec's, really pretty terrific too. So the 3 of us set out to do it. Word spread really rapidly, and people in Winona who were looking for a way to sort of restart tourism in Winona, which is about 2.5 hours southeast of Minneapolis, St. Paul, right on the Mississippi River. Got in touch with Mark and said, we hear you guys want to start a Shakespeare festival. We think you should make Winona your home. And very long story short, we ended up starting a Shakespeare festival. We agreed to do it in the fall of 2002, that we would make Winona our home, and we opened our first season in 2004. And except for this last summer, it's been going strong ever since.
Can I end this with one final? We like to end these interviews with a little bit of time travel,
Uh-oh.
and so I want us to go. I want us to go on a bit of just a bit of a time. We're going to travel back in time here. I want you to pretend that it's 1987, and it's your first day on the job at PCPA as the new conservatory director. And you could be standing in the parking lot there on the Allen Hancock College campus, because we hadn't moved into the new buildings yet. So you're in the parking lot in front of the old barracks.
Mm-hmm.
You could stand in the parking lot and you could talk to yourself before you walk in for the first day. Do you have any idea what you might say to Paul Barnes in 1987 in the parking lot in front of the barracks?
I would say, trust yourself. It's going to be okay.
Well, let's share that with all of our future students that are out there watching. That you're going to be walking into the CBC building here in mid-August, and we want you to trust yourself, because it's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Paul, thanks so much. This was just a dream for me. You know how much I adore you, and that you have had such a profound effect on my life, and I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait till we can get together and chat some more.
Great. Same goes. And, think about doing part 1, part 2. I mean, we do talk.
We do. We do. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We want to thank our sponsors, Suzanne and Ron Levy. We can't do this without you. Thank you so much. And for all of you who take the time to tune in and spend some time with us every month, we miss you in person. We can't wait until we can all be back in the same room together again. Thanks so much. We'll see you next month.